You deserved everything you got. This is a union city.
That is a Philadelphia tradition.
Seize the means of podcasting.
Oh, God, the boss has crushed us.
Let me tell you one thing else.
In oldie-timey times,
Who said it? Kanye West or Thomas
we
Paine?
will not raw dog reality for that one.
The pleasure of the flesh is in solidarity.
The Scab Buster.
It's going to be wholly unprofessional.
Eight together strong. Let that be your mantra.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your favorite labor history podcast is? Well, I do. It's right here. Welcome to the Labor John Podcast. My name is Sam. How you doing? Good. I'm glad. Gabe, my co-host. How are you doing?
I'm
Good.
also
I'm
doing
glad. And today we're going to learn about
well. The 1934 Seabrook farm strike.
Oh, okay. Oh, the 30s. Oh, God. No.
Yep.
No.
Depression happens.
Depression.
Talk to your therapist about it.
Great Depression happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so this takes place in this wonderful world called South Jersey.
Oh. Great start.
And we know South Jersey as just beaches. There's actually a whole piece of the state inland of the beaches. I know. This is very surprising.
I thought you just cross the bridge, then you drive for about an hour and a half, and then you get to the ocean, Gabe.
I mean, that's generally how it works. But
That's the extent of New Jersey.
People actually live in the in-between there.
Do they really?
Surprisingly. Or at least they did in 1934. I cannot speak to whether or not anyone still lives there.
I haven't heard any. New Jersey has been pretty quiet.
It's true.
I'd watch out. I'd be very cautious. I think they're planning something.
That's entirely possible.
It's probably another bridge gate.
I mean, there's a lot of bridges that they could bridge gate. So the Seabrook Farms was a farm outside of Bridgeton. It was also kind of its own little community.
Okay.
But Bridgeton and Seabrook are both in Cumberland County, South Jersey, southwestern New Jersey. So European presence there dates back to the 1600s, but it wasn't Bridgeton wasn't incorporated until the 1830s, and it very quickly became a weirdly significant industrial and agricultural hub for New Jersey.
Of course, Bridgeton is very famous for that.
Yeah.
Game. Everybody knows that.
And it had a number of technical schools and colleges, and there's actually some institutes of higher learning.
Oh, damn. Okay. Bougie Bridge. Bridgerton? Yeah. Bridgeton? What the fuck is it called
Bridgeton.
now? There we go.
Bridgeton.
I'm going to refer to it as Bridgerton from now on.
So in 1881, this guy named Charles F. Seabrook was born to A.P. Seabrook. And A.P. Seabrook was a truck farmer, which basically meant a truck farmer.
Okay. Usually when I say what, it means you need to explain that.
I was about to.
I know,
and then you said what?
Gabe, I need some words.
So he basically a truck farmer is an oldie-timey term for basically like a small produce farmer that would bring produce to a farmer's market.
I knew that, Gabe. Why are you explaining this?
Because not everyone is as smart as you are, or as pretty as you are, Sam.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Gabe, I'm blushing.
For our dumber and uglier listeners.
Oh my Gabe, no. What are you doing? What are you doing, sir?
So anyway.
And those fucking Patreon supporters.
Oh my God. So Charles worked on his father's farm from a very young age and very quickly became interested in implementing new technology to improve crop yields. In 1907, he implemented an overhead irrigation system that's called
rain.
Yes.
It's called rain.
But like rain that you can turn on.
There we go.
So he made himself into God.
Okay.
And you'll get more of that sense as we go through this. Then in 1911, CF, which is what everyone called Charles Seabrook, he bought out his father's shares in the farm and took full ownership of it. Continued to invest heavily into technological developments, and basically turned Seabrook Farms into like one of the first real industrial farms.
Really? Like in the
North
country?
America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. All right.
So he built over 35 miles of roadway,
Shit.
including apparently a large chunk of State Route 77, specifically so that his trucks could go to Philly, Camden, Trenton, and New York.
Okay. I thought he did it out of the good of his heart, Gabe.
Not quite.
The good of his wallet.
Yeah. He also built 2 separate rail connections, a sawmill, dams to increase the water storage to supply his advanced irrigation systems, along with like miles and miles of pipeline and pumping stations to move all of the water around everywhere. He had a refrigerated warehouse, packing houses, and then a like whole fleet of trucks to do all of the delivery. So everything was vertically integrated.
Okay.
From like putting the seeds in the ground to handing a grocery store a bushel of goods.
This man's got a hand in everything.
And he became known as the Henry Ford of agriculture.
Oh, that's not a compliment entirely.
Yeah.
It's like, thank you. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, he was the guy.
How did he feel about the Jews, Gabe?
So I haven't uncovered any evidence about that. But we will also get into that down the line. So like Henry Ford, he was totally obsessed with his business. His family described him as cold and calculating.
Oh, God. Your family? That's bad, man. Just pack it up, man. Pack it in. You're done.
But he was very good at curating his public image. So whenever he was out in public, it was always with his whole family, and everyone was always smiling and happy and lovey. So he knew how to play the propaganda game. For the most part, the farm was doing well. He did overextend himself twice. First time was in 1924, which almost drove him into bankruptcy. And then again, at the very beginning of the Great Depression, he again almost went into bankruptcy. Both times he was able to recover and then doubled down on technological innovation and maximizing every little bit of profit that he could get.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a fighter, Gabe.
Yes. Good, true American entrepreneur.
There we go.
And then in 1934, he started a partnership with General Foods, which had the patent for Clarence Birdseye's freezing system.
What?
So this was one of the first patents for freezing vegetables.
Interesting. Okay.
So Seabrook got into a partnership with General Foods, which gave him access to the patent, which allowed him to open one of the first frozen vegetable processing plants in the world.
Really?
At Seabrook Farms. So that really started to put him on the map. And after, or in like the later 30s and into the 40s, Seabrook Farms ended up becoming like a household name of frozen vegetables.
Yeah.
Now, all of this, despite being like very technological and advanced, still required a lot of human labor to get all of this done.
People.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because these vegetables were still planted and harvested, sorted, and packed by hand.
Oh,
So early on, Seabrook Farms relied very, very heavily on Italian immigrants transplanted from Philadelphia.
okay.
And basically they went into South Philly and offered people housing and work and brought like whole families down to
Damn.
South Jersey.
They're just abducting South Philly families to work on their farms.
Basically, the first and putting them into company towns.
There we go.
First one they built was called the Italian Village, or got that nickname because literally everyone living there were Italians.
This one Irish guy is like, I do not approve of this.
By the mid 30s, there were still largely or majority Italian workforce.
Yeah.
They had also now seen a large influx of black workers fleeing Jim Crow in the South and looking for better wages in the North. So now...
No.
So they set up another company town.
What is this one called, Gabe?
That one they never mentioned. I could not find the name. I'm not sure I want to find the name. But so they did have segregated housing, but for the most part, when everyone was out working in the fields, it was everyone together.
Nice.
At least from what I've been able to tell. And when I say everyone, it was fathers, mothers, and children all right next to each other.
All I hear is solidarity, Gabe.
Yeah.
If we're going to toil, we're going to toil together.
That's the way to do it. So the actual work that was done at Seabrook, despite all of the mechanization and automation and irrigation and all of that, all of the Asians, the actual work was still like stooping down, back-breaking labor.
Yeah.
Vegetables out of the ground. And just like today, the way it works is that in the morning, you would hop on the back of a large truck.
There we go.
It would drive you out in like miles away from your house, drop you off in a field. There's probably an overseer watching your work the whole time. And then you would go out with bushel baskets, fill them up, and then load them up on a truck at the end of the day. Or do that multiple times a day. And you are also doing this out in pretty much any weather, especially in the heat of the summer.
Isn't that crazy? 90 years later, we're still doing that shit. I mean, I'm not personally, but I mean, there are people out there sweating their asses off out in the field. So
the vast majority of vegetables that we eat today are still handpicked. And thank God for the UFW.
Don't buy scab grapes. No scab grapes.
Don't buy scab grapes. So 1934, Seabrook Farms had an integrated workforce.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, he had an integrated workforce, laboring in arduous conditions.
I'm done helping you out, Gabe.
Thank you. And dealing with the Great Depression. So the workers were also making as low as 5 cents an hour.
Damn.
Which is roughly like $1.18 today.
That's better than I thought it was. Damn, that's sad,
it's still not great.
That's sad.
So after dealing with all of this, workers organized themselves into what got called Local Number 2 of the Farmers and Workers Association of America.
Oh, okay.
So on April 6th, 1934, a delegation of workers led by Jerry Brown, who was a black laborer on the farms, who got elected to the president of the local, presented their demands to CF. They included a minimum of 30 cents an hour for laboring men, 25 cents an hour for laboring women, and then a flat scaled rate for skilled workers above that.
Okay.
Time and a half for overtime work and Sunday work. No further increases in rent or commodity prices at the company store. no money to be deducted on any pretext whatever.
What?
Apparently, it was very common for people to be handed their pay envelopes at the end of the week and to have the envelope very clearly have been torn open.
Oh, okay.
And with no explanation as to why money was taken out. Then each person renting from the firm or from the farm would be presented with a rent book that would list out all of their rent payments.
Yeah.
So that they could keep track of everything and also have proof that, no, I did actually pay rent this month.
Okay, that's good.
Yes.
I like that idea.
And then no member of the association will be discharged for their membership in the union. So
Fair.
You can't fire anyone for union membership. Seabrook, so this is from Jerry Brown's account of what happened.
Okay.
Responded to this by telling him directly that he would fire all of the Italian workers and keep on the black workers at higher wages if he agreed to just take a backdoor deal. But Brown stuck to the union and refused.
I love it.
And for refusing to accept this division, and by making himself a target by being in leadership, Brown was fired that same day. So once the union heard of Brown's termination, they immediately declared a strike.
There we go.
And between 200 and 300 farm workers marched off the job, set up picket lines, and began enforcing the strike.
I love it.
This is also in the pre-National Labor Relations Act era.
We're getting back there, Gabe. Don't worry.
Well, the Wagner Act... well, actually, no, because the Wagner Act excluded agricultural workers. So this was when the federal government was just like, everybody can unionize? Maybe. I don't really know. And so that gave them some legal protection under the National Industrial Recovery Act. So by April 9th, the strike actually started spreading to other farms. So Coster and Company Nurseries, which was a neighboring farm to Seabrook, also went on strike. And then Seabrook Bulb Gardens, which I believe was their commercial flower firm.
Okay.
So selling decorative flowers. They also went on strike. Garfield A. McKean, who had been hired as a mediator between the union and management, quit his job that same day, stating that neither side was willing to budge from their initial position. Then the timeline gets really fuzzy here, but from what I can tell, he seems to quit in the morning. The sheriff and the undersheriff of Cumberland County both showed up at the farm around that same time, refused to tell reporters who called them to come out to the farm, which was a little suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also was revealed that before McKean quit, he apparently delivered a message to the union stating that Seabrook was willing to agree to all of their demands, but only temporarily.
What?
And then Seabrook's son was asked about this, who was like the operational manager for the farm.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah. Was asked about this. He said he would have a statement when the time was ripe, and then walked away from the reporters. But while all of this is going on, they had a full crop of cabbages sitting in the field that was supposed to start being harvested on the 6th. So they're 3 days behind on their harvest already.
Can't have that.
No. So the union's negotiating committee was made up of Ernest Johnson, Paul Betts, Danny Maroney, James Ingalls, Clarence Kane, Tom Lee, and Joe the Baker.
Joe the Baker.
Joe the Baker.
Oh.
That is the only way that this man is referred to.
I appreciate
in every article.
What's your last name for the record? Oh, it's the Baker.
The Baker.
This is my brother, the candlestick maker.
So Seabrook then came out and said that while they were, or the next day, they said that they were willing to pay the increased wages, but they could only do it temporarily because they had taken out a federal loan which required them to state their budget, and they couldn't deviate from that budget because of the loan. So they had to, or the money had to come out of the pay for the executives of Seabrook Farms. So they said, we were willing to do this temporarily, but we need to wire Washington to let the loan company know that we're switching, or we're like making this change to the budget. They hadn't heard back from Washington by the end of the 9th, but it seems like they just kind of decided that it was in their best interest to just start paying them better wages, because otherwise they were going to lose a shit ton of money in lost produce.
Okay.
And they also didn't have time to replace 250 workers in the middle of harvest season.
And the strike is over.
Yes.
This was my favorite episode, Gabe.
Yep. So they agreed to all of the demands of the workers, provided their wage increases, rehired everyone, and reinstated Jerry Brown. Now they did, again, like they kept repeating, this is only a temporary solution, because they needed to talk to their creditors.
Their handlers.
But it worked. The workers at Seabrook had a successful strike. They got a wage increase. And so they kept organizing because they knew that they were going to have to defend these victories very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And in June 1934, profits at the farm started to slump a little bit in the middle of the summer. And Mr. Seabrook did not like that. So he found a remedy for that situation. Can you guess what that remedy was?
They put the kibosh on the workers.
The easiest way to cut down on costs was to cut down on wages. He generously reduced workers' wages from 30 to 18 cents an hour.
Damn. 18 cents?
A 12-cent reduction.
That's just enough change that I will throw into the sewer. That I would not take the Coinstar.
It's likely that he knew that this was going to trigger another strike.
Yeah.
And that's what he was hoping for.
Okay.
Because the first strike, he was caught off guard and didn't have time to bring in scabs or company guards. But now he had months to plan. So at 6 a.m., June 25th, 1934, and 300 workers at Seabrook Farms walked off the job again, this time demanding a reinstatement of their 30 cents an hour wage that they had won back in April. Now, this time they were immediately met with a violent response from a local constable and some supposed hired gunman from Philadelphia. The constable was a guy named Jack Saunders, also known as Big Red Sutherland.
Damn.
He was known as, like, locally known as a notorious racketeer who, like, would basically intimidate people for cash.
I would think nothing less of Big Red Sutherland.
He had previously been the deputy sheriff of Cumberland County, but had been stripped of that title a few months earlier, and then was made constable, I believe, of Bridgeton Township. The timeline of this fight, again, gets a little bit fuzzy, but it looks like a group of the strikers had set up a picket line. A group of strikers made a dash for the company offices, probably to either occupy them or get a hold of the ledger books to prove that they could afford the wage increases.
Yeah.
In response to this, the two gunmen fired revolvers into the crowd.
Oh.
The crowd didn't slow down at all.
Oh.
And kept charging. As the strikers got close enough, Saunders and the two gunmen started beating them back with blackjacks, which, if you don't know, is basically a leather club, usually with a lead weight.
Yeah. It hurts.
So, yeah.
It fucking hurts.
That left 3 workers injured. 2 ended up in the Bridgeton Hospital with fractured skulls.
Shit, man.
They were Dan Maroney and Leonard Dramus. Tony Salvatore, who's the other worker injured, was able to return home. It looks like he was just badly bruised. He didn't have any fractures. After the fight, the 2 gunmen got into one of Seabrook's cars, fled the scene, but the police arrived and arrested Saunders. So we have the local police arresting a constable.
What?
Who was almost... and then basically, like, the moment Saunders was booked, he was bailed out by Seabrook.
Yeah. Okay. God damn it.
A delegation of striking workers then went to County Prosecutor Thomas G. Tuso with a request for a warrant for Seabrook's arrest.
Oh.
Yeah. Because they were like, he clearly hired 2 gunmen to shoot us. Yeah, like, this is clearly illegal. He should be arrested. So that was the first day of the strike. We should also at this point mention that the union was tangentially at this point part of the Trade Union Unity League, which was an attempt at mass industrial organizing by the Communist Party.
Oh.
As part of this, International Labor Defense, which was a communist-supported legal aid organization, was able to supply legal counsel to all of the workers that got arrested.
All right.
So they actually had some institutional support and had lawyers ready to go.
Good.
So Tuso, the prosecutor, inspected the scene at the farm, stated that he would send a county detective to investigate. And then County Sheriff William L. Brown was also on scene, trying to keep the peace. During the investigations, they found an abandoned Packard sedan, which belonged to the farm, sitting abandoned on North Laurel Street in Bridgeton. The back window had bullet holes in it, which police determined came from inside the vehicle. So as the gunmen were fleeing, they were shooting back at the crowd. So second day of the strike continues without further incident. But at this point, another cabbage crop started to wither and rot out in the field.
Poor cabbages.
So by Friday, June 29th, Seabrook had started washing and canning operations back up again. Initially, he had shut everything down, but as he got his affairs in order, he started to bring in scab truckloads of vegetables. The first round was a truckload of peas that came to his canning facility. The strikers attempted to block the trucks. The drivers, who appear to all have been related to Seabrook in one way or another.
Okay.
Again, this is all just a family operation.
Yeah, this is a family business, Gabe. How are we disparaging such an esteemed family business?
Those drivers that were related to Seabrook almost ran down 4 workers who tried to stop them.
And they shot out the back window, too, while they were at it.
Yeah. The drivers, Courtney Seabrook and Thomas Minch, were both arrested and held on bail. Presumably, they got bailed out within like 20 minutes.
Good. I'm glad, Gabe.
Yeah. Additional violence broke out, and Sutherland, or
Big
what
Red,
was his name? Big Red. Yeah. Big Red.
How could you forget Big Red Sutherland? Friend of the show, Big Red Sutherland.
Big Red was again arrested for assault. And 2 women, 2 striking women Vivian Dahl and Eleanor Henderson were also arrested on riot charges. It was suggested at this point that Sutherland should be removed from office as the township as a constable.
Yeah, it's about time. I don't know. This track record's not too good.
But a meeting of the local town council voted that down.
Oh, God.
And said, no, we want to keep him on as a constable. So state and local police rushed troopers to the farm to keep peace. Sheriff Brown actually declared that he wouldn't allow professional strikebreakers to be brought in as scabs. So then Colonel Norman Schwarzkopf.
Holy shit.
Colonel Norman Schwarzkopf was the father of General Norman Schwarzkopf.
Well, I guess with a name like that, you know, how many are you?
Yeah, Norman Schwarzkopf Sr. was also instrumental in bringing the Shah of Iran into power and deposing Iranian democracy in the 50s. So
let's go invade Iraq.
Yeah.
Let's go do that.
For funsies. So the next week, there were hearings for Vivian Dahl and Eleanor Henderson.
Okay.
Who were now being labeled communist agitators.
Of course. Yeah. It's about time.
So there were supposed to be hearings, rather. They were delayed by the Justice of the Peace, O. Leslie Downs.
Justice of the Peas, Gabe.
Oh, there you go. So on July 3rd, the two women were brought forward to provide not guilty pleas. But Justice Downs declared that because Charles F. Seabrook couldn't be there, he couldn't proceed. Because Seabrook was the one pressing charges against them. And so without prosecution present, he was just like, well, we just have to keep holding you.
No. That's not the way it should work, Abe.
That was pretty much the argument that Vivian Dahl and Eleanor Henderson and their multiple civil liberties lawyers were like, hey, that's not how this is supposed to work, guys. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, about 100 strikers protested out front of the courthouse. Various civil liberty organizations sent him telegrams demanding that he stop the delay and release the women. And that evening, one person called him and asked if he'd like a trip to the moon on the dynamite route.
Oh! That might be the most entertaining threat I've ever heard.
It's so fucking 30s too. I do like, hello, Justice of the Peace Downs. Do you want to take a trip to the moon on the dynamite route?
You and that dame?
Downs, according to the newspaper, Downs apparently told the caller to go to a place directly opposite the moon. He told him to go to hell. Yeah.
Nah.
You can publish the most racist eugenicist argument you want, but you can't say the word hell. So that night, strikers also spoke out at a people's forum to get their side of the story out to the public in the hopes of garnering some support. It seems that kind of backfired because local farmers were absolutely terrified of worker organizing spreading to their farms. And 400 of them started organizing together to help Seabrook put the strike down once and for all. So they basically started forming vigilante groups. So the women finally got their hearing on July 6th. That same day, there was another riot on the farm because, again, Constable Saunders...
Big Red.
Big Red Saunders. And this time, Farm Superintendent Maurice Peck attempted to bring in a group of scabs and tried to get the tractors back into operation. So strikers tried to prevent this by throwing rocks, hitting them with sticks, and literally fighting tooth and nail to keep the tractors from getting out into the fields. One of the union organizers, a guy named Anthony Berra, escaped Saunders, who I guess had jumped off the tractor and started chasing him. by jumping out of a second-story window and running into the nearby woods.
God damn.
And hiding there until everything calmed down. This, like, the other side of this is that everyone, the company town was like right next to all of the packing facilities. So you literally had a fenced-in community surrounded by this huge industrial farm.
Yeah.
So everyone was like out fighting and picketing during the day, and then would go into their houses at night, still surrounded by this whole thing.
Love it.
It's unclear when they started doing this, but at some point, the Seabrook went around and put chicken wire up over the back doors and windows of all of the houses, so that you could only come and go from the front door.
What?
Yeah.
The fuck is wrong with this guy?
Basically to trap everyone in their houses and make sure that you could crowd control them. So, big fight. Police rushed the farm, firing tear gas, basically willy-nilly, and beating everyone with their clubs. Also, because all of this was happening right next to the company town, when they were firing tear gas, it was getting into everyone's houses.
A breath of fresh tear gas, Gabe.
Yeah.
Invigorates the lungs.
The violence continued to escalate, and shots were fired into the crowd of pickets, hitting one striker in the leg. By the end of the day, 4 men were hospitalized. Saunders, Peck, a scab, and 1 striker. So only 1 striker was hospitalized, but
okay.
It was still not a great day.
No.
2 strikers were arrested. One of them was accused of slashing at Big Red with a knife.
You taking on Big Red?
Yeah.
That's not a knife. This is a knife. Takes out a bazooka.
After the fight on July 6th, the local Ku Klux Klan stated that they would lend their support to Seabrook.
No!
To prevent the spread of communism in southern New Jersey.
No.
Yep.
Oh.
You know, one thing that the Klan really likes is an alliance of Italian Catholic and Black workers who all joined a communist-aligned union. That's the Klan's favorite things.
I can't believe it took about 75 odd episodes for us to introduce the Klan. I'm actually kind of proud of that. I'm actually proud of that.
Philly has had enough of its own internal racism that we haven't had to get the Klan involved. Just to lay out the field, you have about 300 strikers up against the Seabrook Farms, occasionally the state police, then at least one really belligerent constable, and about 400 local farmers that would show up from time to time with clubs, and the Ku Klux Klan.
It's always fighting uphill for the working class here, Gabe.
Yes. On Tuesday, July 10th, violence flared up again. This time, produce trucks were being brought into the canning facilities, and strikers were trying to keep them out. Men and women, side by side, both Black and Italian, fought the trucks off using stones, fences, poles, bean poles, clubs, sticks, and literally anything that they could pick up. Vivian Dahl, who at this point had been released from jail and was immediately back out on the picket line, as she put it, the women saw truckloads of beets being brought in and just saw red. So 3 Black women jumped on the back of the trucks and started throwing the bushels of beets into the street.
Nice.
Cops and vigilantes, who are either Klansmen or local farmers, or both, it's hard to tell, grabbed those 3 women and dragged them off of the trucks. And then as the rest of the strikers saw these women being manhandled, they rushed in and basically a melee ensued. Melee, that's the word.
They fucking fought, Gabe.
Yeah, they had a big
fucking
fight.
fought.
It was a fucking massive street fight. So after that got cleared out, which was basically just both sides beating each other into a pulp, Sheriff Brown declared martial law.
Oh.
Police came in firing tear gas bombs at the strikers. One woman claimed that a state police officer threw a tear gas bomb into her house, leading her to need hospitalization and causing the house to catch fire.
Nice.
Luckily, though...
That's arson.
But luckily, the police had already been using a fire hose on the strikers to disperse the crowd. So they stopped committing atrocities and put the fire out. Yeah.
Wow.
Because the real thing is that Seabrook had paid to have that house built. So you can't damage property.
Yeah.
You can take a break from committing atrocities against
human beings, yes.
Yeah. To protect property, you gotta get your affairs straight there.
Property over people, Gabe. That's what we've always said on this podcast.
It's true. That is our unofficial motto.
It is our motto.
Tear gas and chemical smoke had already gotten to most of the other houses.
Jesus.
Many of which had young children in them, or some of them had infants in their cradles.
Stop.
So, yeah. So there were multiple accounts of women having to rush into their houses and grab infants out of the cradle because they were at risk of basically asphyxiating because of tear gas.
Nice.
After all of this, 60 strikers were injured, 27 were arrested, including Vivian Dahl and Eleanor Henderson again.
Not again. Those poor women.
But additionally, William O'Donnell, who is a former New Jersey state trooper, who at some point became a radical lefty.
What?
Had apparently spent the night before giving like incredibly incendiary speeches to the strikers.
Holy shit!
Yeah, because there had been a mass meeting the night before, and he was one of the main speakers. So, but he got arrested now. In response to the violence, Governor Moore declared that the New Jersey State Police would be responsible for maintaining the peace at Seabrook, and named Colonel Norman Schwarzkopf personally responsible for the command of that operation.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Additionally, at this point, a federal mediator was finally dispatched, supposedly by Frances Perkins herself, to find a solution and resolve the fighting. So the next day, federal mediator John A. Moffett left his sickbed because he had been suffering from a case of double pneumonia.
Damn, double pneumonia?
So he and a qualified nurse traveled to Seabrook, where he was able to meet with both the strike committee and Seabrook's management. They worked out an agreement, which was amenable to both parties, but not everyone was happy about it. So what finally got presented was Seabrook would immediately rehire as many strikers as possible. A roster would be made of everyone who was not yet rehired, and they would be given preference over new hires.
Okay.
And then a 5-person board made up of 2 persons selected by the master of the Pomona Grange, which is like a local farmers organization.
Okay.
2 publicly spirited citizens.
What does that mean?
I don't know, but what it meant practically at this point was that the county farm agent and then 1 person appointed by the Court of Common Pleas.
All right.
And then finally, John Moffett would make up the 5th member of this board. And that was to be the arbitration board for all disputes going further. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was something. It's better than tear gas.
It's better than 2 years.
But Donald Henderson, who is the husband of Eleanor, and a former professor at Columbia University, had been one of the primary behind-the-scenes agitators for both the union and the strike, and was suspected of having strong communist ties. So once this proposal was presented to everyone gathered out front of the offices, he mounted a soapbox, demanded to the crowd of strikers that 4 union representatives be added to the arbitration board.
Fair.
Yeah. So his remarks were then translated to the workers who didn't speak English. And there seems to have been a fair amount of support for his demand. He then went on to say that Horowitz, who was one of the negotiators, had sold out the union. At this point, Horowitz mounted another soapbox, denied this accusation, explained that the agreement provided the protections that they had fought for, and asked for a vote then and there. A 2/3 majority approved the agreement, but Henderson was still furious. He yelled, "The strike's not over, not by a damn sight," and started walking the half mile towards the administration building where Seabrook and the rest of the management still were. The crowd rushed out to stop him. Apparently, some people were even calling for lynching him.
What?
Shit.
Shit.
It's unclear as to whether or not that was strikers. I would not be surprised if it was like other agitators. In the end, the state police came in and forcibly escorted him off the premises.
It's better than the lynching.
Yeah. So in the end, the agreement was supported by the workers.
Okay.
Or by the workers present. But that was only about 1/3 of the total strikers. And there was a lot of concern that if the other strikers disagreed, it could cause further trouble. So in an attempt to keep all of that from happening, Seabrook agreed to drop all charges against his employees from strike violence, but stated that on the one hand, he said, "I'm dropping all of these charges." On the other hand, he believed that the strike was broken by putting communists in jail and keeping them there. And basically he kept trying to say that everything was just caused by outside agitators, and that his good upstanding employees love him, and that they would never go on strike willingly, and they were just corrupted by these communists.
Yes.
But in the end, they did agree to that agreement as signed, and eventually went back to work the next day. And presumably for the rest of the 30s, that arbitration system continued. I do know that both Vivian and her husband, Leif Dahl, were still active in South Jersey doing farm workers organizing into at least 36 or 37, because the Library of Congress has a whole bunch of pictures of them at union meetings.
Ooh.
In South Jersey. So while the strike was settled, there was still a lot of organizing activity going on.
Yeah.
Because this is also where the United Cannery Workers kind of came out of this, and Campbell's, and like the whole South Jersey agricultural world. But yeah, that was the 1934 Seabrook farm strike. And I'm just going to briefly mention that during World War II, Seabrook Farms then went on to use incarcerated Japanese labor from internment camps to replace their workforce.
That's the end of the episode, Gabe.
Yep.
I appreciate everybody listening. We had a great time. We learned some stuff we probably shouldn't have learned.
Yeah.
We got a little pissed off, but that's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
If this shit doesn't piss you off, then there's something wrong with you. So
Fair play. Fair play.